Hi YouTube. I hope everybody's doing really well. Sorry it's been a while since I made a video. I know you probably saw my community post about Summer Wells. Her mother has a sister that went missing back in 2009. She literally vanished. So that raised the alarm in my mind because I thought, what are the odds of two people from the same family going missing? That's really, really pretty odd. So I contacted Rose, the missing sister, her husband's dad, so her father-in-law, and he gave me a little bit of information. It wasn't any keen insight into Candus much. He actually had never met her, but he knew some distant information about her. So I figured I'd share this with you anyway. You never know, maybe it will help piece this together. You know how it is. It's all a big puzzle in little parts. You start to fill up little parts and eventually you have the whole story. But before I go into that, I wanted to tell you what really raised the alarm in my mind was seeing the interview where Don Wells, the dad of Summer, is being interviewed like at the press conference with his son next to him, his blonde-haired son whose head is like down the whole time. He looks extremely uncomfortable, like he doesn't want to be there, and maybe even like he knows something. I would love to know what that kid has witnessed, just in case the parents do have something to do with this. And I really don't want to jump to conclusions like I just said, but the likelihood of this girl just vanishing out there, and then the dad giving so many possible explanations. Was it the bears or the druggies? Or, he gives a lot of possible outcomes, and I think that's really weird too. Another thing that threw me off a little bit was the religiosity thing, the little religiosity factor. It's like he starts talking about his Seventh-day Adventist faith, and that he found out that the Sabbath was actually Saturday, so he's now a Seventh-day Adventist. And then he starts talking about Summer's own faith and that, if she knew the Lord or not. I just thought that's a little bit inappropriate when we are discussing a child who's missing and time is of the essence, and he doesn't seem like he's in any big hurry to get answers. I don't know if you noticed that, but that freaked me out a bit. I contacted Rose's father-in-law, and he basically started at the beginning that Rose and his son had been married, I think, for a couple years. They had 2 daughters. Youngest daughter was 4 months old. Oldest daughter, I think, was about 1.5, 2. Rose was an extremely devoted mother. She wouldn't have missed a thing. She wouldn't have left her on her own volition. It was just, she was too dedicated to do something like that. And so she and her husband would take turns watching the kids on a Friday, Saturday night so they could each get to enjoy the nightlife individually. So not so much together, but at least one of them could go out and they just take turns. So she had made plans to go out with her cousin and they were going to go karaoke. So they went out, did that, and she never came home. There was never any sightings, I don't think. No mention from anybody, no major leads, breakthroughs, or anything. She just literally vanished. And later, I think it was about 4 days later, her car was found in a neighboring town. And that was that. It was like super weird. So I wanted to get to the meat and potatoes of why are there 2 people from one family missing? That's so weird to me. So I tried to make sure and ask him, did you ever meet Candus? Did you know Candus? Was Candus living in the area? Again, Candus is Summer's mother. So he told me no, he had never. First of all, no, she did not live there at the time. She didn't live in the surrounding areas at all. I believe she was somewhere in Arkansas at the time. However, Rose was caring for Candus's kids for, I think, a year, maybe a year or 2, while she was going to college. So she literally had taken the motherhood role on behalf of her sister Candus, because Candus was unable to care for her own kids, whether it was drugs or it was some, how life happens, right? You have to take care of somebody's kids. Sometimes it happens. Fine. So she had her kids for a while. I asked, what kind of a relationship did Rose and her husband have? And he said they got along wonderfully. And from what I could tell, just based on my conversation with this father-in-law, so the dad of her husband, this guy was so nice and so forthright and friendly and kind, gentle, spirited, a very, very good guy. So I didn't get the impression that there was any like long lines of abuse, because you know how that is. It's like generation to generation, the man is beating up the woman, and then the son picks that up and does it to his wife, and it's just a horrible, horrible, almost like a generational curse. So I didn't get that impression at all about this father-in-law of Rose's, which made me not concerned about this being a domestic thing like Rose's husband had done away with her. I didn't get that impression at all. Not to mention the fact that he was watching the kids at the time. She was with her cousin. There was no, they weren't together. So I wasn't concerned about this being a marital deal. So I did find out that Candus and her sister Rose, and they have another sister, their parents, their mom and dad, split like maybe, in their teenage years, I think it was. Dad and mom split because mom left dad for another woman. So I think that really messed up their lives a bit. Divorce happens, it's really the most awful, depressing, traumatizing event that really kids and teenagers and stuff could even go through. So I can't even imagine if there's that shock factor too of it being that mom left dad for another woman. Even in this day and age, it still had to have been extremely traumatic and crazy for them. Then he told me that the husband of Rose has still never moved on. To this day, they still don't have any leads. When the car was found in that neighboring town, they dusted it, law enforcement dusted it for DNA, fingerprints, all that stuff, and could get no leads. So it is a cold as ice case. He says he wants to know what happened to his daughter-in-law one day before he kicks the bucket. And that's when I explained to him, I said, well, I don't know if you know this or not, but Candus, Rose's sister, her daughter just disappeared on Tuesday night. He goes, no, I hadn't heard that. I was like, yeah, it just happened, and there's a big search underway in that part of Tennessee trying to find her. We don't know what happened, and he was concerned about that, but he had not even been alerted to the fact that was going on, that she was missing. He had heard that they were living in Tennessee, kind of kept up with their lives from a distance, but they weren't like super close or anything. I don't know what it was about that interview, but when I saw Don Wells, Summer's dad, with his son, there's my daughter. She's playing in her little pool with my husband. When I saw that interview with Don Wells and the blonde-haired son, I don't know, I immediately got this concerned feeling that it seemed like the boy was trying to pull away from him, like he was uncomfortable, like he might know something. And, to be a child in the same household as your siblings, you obviously you witness the way they're treated over the way you're treated. Was there domestic violence? Was there sexual abuse? Unfortunately, in America, huge inconvenient truth here, but there is a ton of incest, and it's happening all over, and it's been happening for years. It's just nobody wants to address it. Even in my own family, my uncle, my aunt, they adopted 2 kids. The kids were left at 2 years old in the middle of the Mojave Desert. Their parents were 16 years old. They were going to a concert. For whatever reason, they brought the little kids, my cousin and her brother, with them. And then the car broke down. So they left the 2 kids in the car, dirty diapers, no bottles, and they were rescued, I think 2 or 3 days later. Luckily, they were still alive, but I think it was in the middle of the summer. So it was horrendous, just a horrible situation. So my aunt and uncle ended up adopting them, and in my cousin's teenage years, she started gaining some weight. It was like a rapid weight gain, and I remember thinking, man, what's going on? You know, what's the deal? Because I was young. I was like 12 or 13. But even then, I would pick up things about people. I've always been that way. You know, I'm kind of perceptive in that sense. I can feel I guess I'm an empath is what they call it now. But I noticed that she seemed very emotionally, down and out. And I asked her, what's going on? You know, you just seem really sad. You seem upset. And that's when she told me that her uncle, so my uncle's brother, had been molesting her. And see, they all shared one big plot of land. It's a farming community in southeastern Arizona. And so they all lived on the same property, pretty much the same land. And after school, I think she was about 15 years old, my uncle's brother would do things to her. And it was hideous, awful. But the worst thing was that my aunt tried to sweep it under the rug. And that's never what you want to do. You know, I know it's an inconvenient thing to deal with, finding out that your daughter is being molested. Of course it is. It's something no one wants to face, no one wants to deal with in the first place, let alone it being a family member who's doing it. They didn't want to upset the family. It was a horrible dilemma. But my mom and my aunt ended up getting in a big fight because my mom was like, hey, you've got to go to the authorities with this. This is not, if you don't stand up for your daughter now, you have literally dropped the ball for her entire future. And so, yeah, it was just really bad. Uh-oh, my daughter's coming in. So that's my rabbit trail about incest. But like I said, it is very far-reaching, seems to be in almost every family, somewhere, hidden. It's never out in the open, but makes me wonder, what is the deal in this family? Is it domestic violence? Is it sexual abuse? What's the deal? Okay, hopefully I'm not forgetting any of the details. I will say he was a wonderful guy. It wasn't an incredibly long conversation. It was like 8 or 9 minutes. I'm sorry, I had to cut the video short. My daughter came in and was needing me, so. Thank you so much for watching this video, and please help me try to figure these details out. At least we have a few answers, but there's so many left. There's so many questions left unanswered. By the way, please subscribe if you haven't for future videos and updates and things. I have a big video on Barry Morphew coming up, and these are things from a local that are very, very interesting. So thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and take care.